Hey everyone, welcome back to the Heat Press for Profit podcast. We are on episode 97, and today we are talking about creating value through elevated apparel curation. Welcome back. We're super excited to have you guys. We're coming to you live across Facebook, YouTube, LinkedIn, and more. If you're tuning in now, drop a comment. Let us know who you are and where you're watching from. We like to keep this very engaging. So if you have any questions for us, please chat those in. But first, we definitely want to know where you're joining from. If you happen to be catching this later on your favorite podcast platform, that is great. Make sure to subscribe so you never miss an episode. We are dropping fresh content every single week, Thursday at 3 p.m. Eastern time. And if you are curious or wanting to take your heat printing hustle to the next level, head over to our Facebook and join the Heat Press for Profit community. You can connect with industry pros there, swap ideas, and get inspired by fellow decorators that are making big moves in the industry. As I mentioned today, we are going to be diving into a powerful yet overlooked strategy in brand building, and that is how elevated product selection, the thoughtful curation of premium, on-trend, or purpose-driven products can completely transform how your brand is perceived, and more importantly, how it can drive long-term brand loyalty. Today's guest is someone who truly lives and breathes apparel, and not just because it's in his job title, but because it's literally in his bloodline. And I'm thrilled to welcome Michael Snyder to the podcast. Michael, thank you so much for joining.
Pleasure to be here. Thank you.
Yeah, so Michael, you are in a fourth generation force in the apparel world. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah. So our family started a clothing store in 1884. So I was the fourth generation. So it's all I've ever known. I grew up dusting hats and straightening suits. And then from there, just, that's what you did. You got in the store. And my uncle was third generation and really threw me into continuing education and learning fabrics, fibers, tailoring. So yeah, I'm a lifer.
That's awesome. And guys, what really sets Michael apart not only is because it's just really in his bloodline to be a part of this, he lives and breathes it, but it's also his ability to bring ideas to life. Whether it's full brand build, a targeted collection, or a one-off showstopper piece, he has the rare gift of turning bar napkin sketches into garments that don't only look great, but tell a story. And I feel like that is so meaningful to today's topic. We talk a lot about curation and storytelling in today's topic. So thank you again so much for joining us. And I want to talk a little bit about Canvas Custom Apparel Group. From your perspective, what is it that makes Canvas so unique in the apparel space?
Well, I've had quite the journey through from retail. I don't know that there's really a segment of apparel I haven't been in. I think that just means I'm old and I get around. But whether that's retail, a long time in promotion, a long time in sourcing, et cetera. So Canvas is three partners that have come together, and all of us have done somewhat similar things. My partners own very prominent retail brands. Have been in sourcing. I come from sourcing. So we have three people that came together, and I just did the math. We have 120 years of combined experience, just the three of us, right? So just three people, let alone our employees. So we've kind of taken the best of the best. If it's made of fabric, it's fair game. That's what we do, right? But for me, it goes well beyond just making stuff. I get in the weeds and really dive in with customers. I've got a long tenure, marketing and doing fun stuff. So I really like to get into their heads and say, what exactly you're trying to do, right? I'm not going to just sit and go, let's make your t-shirt. What are you doing? Who are you selling it to? And can I help that way? And then, boy, we all woke up this morning to a whole new planet in terms of sourcing. Our president has tariffs on, I think, everybody, including aliens from other planets. So, I'm in the sourcing business. So it's a fact of life. But our ability to truly go around the world, I source a lot of stuff in the United States and proud to do that. But to be able to navigate things like this is life. It happens. So yeah, a lot of time going on today, helping clients navigate that whole thing.
Yeah. And you've been around for so long. You've created numerous apparel brands from the ground up, and through it all, It just seems like you've really never lost your passion or innovation for these things, especially when things like the tariffs and everything happening. So, as far as from a Canvas standpoint, how do you feel as though in today's space you've been able to position yourself differently in terms of quality, style, and innovation? Is it through asking those questions and getting into the nitty gritty with your clients, or is there a different take that you have with it?
Well, it's a few things. So you really have to just stay in the loop to what's happening, right? You don't have to be a
Mm-hmm.
total dork about it, but numerous times a year I will go right to Chicago and I will just hit every store and just walk around. And you can't help as
Mm-hmm.
you navigate retail, you just start to feel things. You can feel the way the winds are blowing. You can feel how consumers are reacting. So if you don't do that, you really don't have a base to work from. And if you take that and then you take this big, all this junk in my head that I've done over time, you sit down with the customer and ask them the right questions, you really then
Mm.
can get to the bottom of, right? So for me, it's just do a ton of homework and don't just sit back and have your customer go, here, I want this. Okay, I'll make that. I would prefer they come and say, okay, I saw this and I like this and right. And help me take this stuff. And so you said it, it's not a joke. The last brand I built was from a bar napkin at a Hilton Garden Inn in Texas. And there's a
Mm-hmm.
little sketch on it. And from there, to turn it into a brand and that's building the ERP and all that kind of crazy stuff. But, with it, and I know we're going to talk about it in a minute, but there's just little parts to going down this checklist, right? There's a checklist you go down to help
Mm-hmm.
the client get there. Apparel's the most personal right, of everything. You wake up in the morning, you're making a decision. And it's a high bar to get people, right, to put and you've said it before, the top drawer, right? Is it a
Yes.
go-to? And that's your chat. That's what I wake up every morning. I'm like, how do I make something that for my customers will become top drawer for them?
Yeah, yeah. And I think honestly, this is a conversation that should be touched on in a lot of businesses because I feel like things get so transactional in a day-to-day that we forget to have a conversation with our customers and ask deeper questions and get to know more about why they've come to you in the first place. That way we can present them with the best option that we can provide them with, right? And so I think that leads us right into our first segment perfectly, and that is the power of curation. Because when you start like asking those questions and getting down to what they want to do or this cool thing that they saw in retail that they want to see in their own brand, how can we curate the right products so that we are able to offer them what we want to offer them so that we can in turn make the money we want to make and keep building our business, but how can we be intentional so that it makes sense that the product that we're showing them fits their needs, right? And so you've seen this industry evolve across decades. How would you define curation in the modern apparel space today?
Well, one thing that obviously was a seismic change is social media, right? We
Mhm.
we couldn't get this hyper personalized, and we couldn't know people as well, and we couldn't see things change that fast. Phrases, art, right? It's
Right.
so rapid, and that's one of the I know with stalls and when we talk about print on demand, the ability to react so quickly to what is happening is really
Yeah.
important. It's here and now. It just happened. I want it now. So, right, that matters. Now, I'm in a different space for that. I can build great products that plug into that engine, and I do. But from my custom world, where you get to build it from scratch, you do go down this checklist, and I'll check them off because they're fascinating. Obviously, the first one is fabric, and I come from a fabric first planet. If it drives everything, right? If I don't have a fabric that I absolutely love, I'm almost like struggling, like I can't do this. Like I can't, don't make me do it.
Yeah, if you don't
Um,
want to wear it, why do you want to work with it?
we look at go in your closet. We all have it. You've been given product that the minute it's given to you, you're like, this has just become a rag in the garage. And it
Hmm.
breaks your heart because somebody spent money and wasted time and resources to do that. And so, for me, you can only get too, feisty in your job, but I will fight pretty hard to say, please do not make anything until all of us in the equation would go, yeah, I'd be proud to wear that. So
Yeah.
fabric first is something that just drives everything I do. Styling, duh. So fit is important. You're never going to make everybody happy with a fit. We're all different. It's the magic of getting to a fit that is somewhat universal, right? Every once in a while, you just get a fit that, boy, 70% of the people love it. That's all you're going to get. 30
Right.
just simply can't wear it for whatever
Right.
reason. So those are the two big ones, obviously. But then you really start to get into the fun stuff. Features, clearly, whether that's fabric treatments, whether that's whatever, trims, buttons, etc. Textures. So, when we are in custom, every fabric has a surface, and that surface matters. And how it touches your skin is one thing, and what it presents on the outside is another thing. When we're in fabric, we can plate fabrics, meaning the inside is completely different than the exterior. So you're engineering both of those to know what's the most important thing to you, right? Obviously, people want both to be interesting, but there's texture is a big part of this.
Texture
Clearly
is
embellishment.
huge. I think that can be overlooked at times because it can fit right and it can feel good, but if the texture is off or coming like unexpected, I feel like it could totally throw somebody for a loop where they're like just confused at that point. They're like, I don't know if this is something I actually want to buy.
Yeah. And sometimes it's photography in a digital age is critical. And if you can't get in and see that suddenly there's some striation in there and you're like, I don't want that. Right.
Right.
So it does matter, without question. Embellishment. Duh. So now we get into the world of stalls. So every medium matters, right? Every fabric cannot take every method. So there's an engineering part of this first and foremost. When we do design work, the worst possible thing we can do is make a picture of something that can't be made. It's like,
Right.
that's 101.
Yeah.
So our designers and engineers have to be trained over the years that you can't do that, right? You can't take that. You can't go over the seam, and no, you can't go from there to there. So there is a lot of work, right, to be done, and a lot of knowledge to know what you can do and not do. In the world of custom, what we stress is the fact that we are going to decorate before panels are sewn together. And in that respect, you can do things that simply can't be done to a stock shirt. So we'll always maximize that, because those are the little things that even John Q. Public can walk up and look at a shirt and go, I know that's custom, because I know that cannot be done. I've never seen it before, right? So that kind of stuff is clearly important. And there's two things I remind people of. There's the interior of a garment, and there's the exterior. And most people focus on the exterior. Great, of course. But the interior, right? There are messages. You can say things inside a garment you cannot say on the outside. There's a way to communicate, right?
That's interesting. I never thought of it like that. So I'm excited to see how you expand on this one.
So we call it, I'll give you a case study now. We call them Easter eggs. Right. So if you find a way, I have a client that we did a flag shirt and it says, own it, own it. Here's the American flag, own it. And then if you flip up the hemline facing you, it says, because there is no plan B. Now, you don't tell people that's there. This client didn't. And I encourage them not to, because it's the thing that you might not find even the first couple times you wear it. Maybe you're folding it on the bed and you go, what? Right. And then that's that thing that not only is it a powerful statement, but it just shows that brand has some creativity, has great messaging. So yes, white label, which we call white private label. Stalls can execute this very well. You have a tearaway label. Now you own that label space. What do you want to say in that label? It shouldn't just be your name and what, right? And then you've got additional space. But the fun case I was telling you about, another one real quick, is there was a software company that wrote code, and they did a jacket for a conference, and they're coders. Now I'm a apparel dork. I don't know what they're doing or what they're talking about, but all I know is I was given some art, and this art was to go inside the jacket, and it looked like, some Swahili to me, but it was very funny to them. Every time somebody looked at it, they laughed very hard. So that's their Easter egg. I still to this day don't know what it was, but whatever it was, they'd be like, but that, that's the fun part, for them is, okay, we built a jacket. That's great. But every time I try it on, right, there's that little thing that me and the group came up with that only we know. So I always remind people, don't forget that space, right? It can be really powerful.
Right. So to sum that up, it sounds like curation today means intentionality, whether that be through the fit, the feel, the texture, right? The fabric, even, right? We don't want to work with fabric we don't even like wearing. We can put an awesome design on Gildan 500, right? But if people don't want to wear the Gildan 500, it doesn't matter how awesome this logo or brand or messaging on the apparel looks. I don't want to wear it, so I'm not going to buy it, right? So these are all like key things. So guys who, for those of you that are looking to how to curate product, make it intentional to who your target audience is. I think that is like the biggest thing, right? Wanting to provide for a consumer without overwhelming them. But that doesn't just mean fewer products, it means offering the right products, right? And if we are offering too many products, they might feel a little overwhelmed. And I feel like those conversations that you're having with each of these clients, whether it be the guys with the coding or the additional messaging, they are able to provide, well, you're helping them actually by providing them clarity and making that decision much easier. But overall, guys, intentionality is the big message here. It could be this checklist that Michael's talking about, but making sure that it aligns with your brand's identity, right?
So there's one last element, bagging, tagging, and packaging.
Bagging, tagging, and packaging. Tell us a little bit more about that.
So we, for instance, I've got one client that does a sweatshirt, and the sweatshirt's amazing, and it celebrates the Iowa class battleships. So we put them in a mock suitcase of the old vintage CPAC suitcase that a Navy enlisted person would use. And instead of just doing tissue, we found the blueprints of the Iowa class battleship and printed them in the tissue, and went so far as to, when the tissue gets folded together, it is not going to have the battleship all screwed up. I mean, think of the engineering to just get the tissue right.
Yeah,
right. So,
yeah.
But that was the thing that completed it. These people were paying over $200 for a sweatshirt. It was worth every bit of it because it's amazing engineering, made in the United States, etc.
You said $200 for the sweatshirt itself?
Yep. The embroidery alone was 60,000 stitches. It took 3 hours for an embroidery.
Well, yeah, I would say for something like that, packaging is going to play a huge role in adding to the overall experience of whenever that item arrives.
Mm-hmm. And it's something as simple as a hang tag. I'm working on a town is turning 150 years, and they're doing a celebratory set of apparel, but the hang tag is going to have a simple QR code that says, visit this, right, to understand the historical side of the museum and who's benefiting and all that. So that's an easy one, right? But we also left room for a sponsor because there's a business, in this town that wanted to be prominent. So yeah, all that stuff comes together, and you don't want to put no offense, but you don't want to put a sponsor on the product typically, right? It's one step too far. Know when to say when and back off.
Yeah, well, I like that you mentioned that too, because you also don't want to be everything to everyone whenever you're going through the phases and the steps of all of this with your clients. In a world of like Amazon style endless options, right? Curated brands are like a friend who always knows what's cool and tells you exactly what to buy. And I feel like you are that fit here. And you are great about like just tying it all up in a pretty bow and presenting it really well. So whenever you guys are getting ready to talk about like a new product with clients and things like that, how are you avoiding being everything to everyone? Is it through this checklist, or is there like a tightly edited like product mix?
No, the check mix does, when you go down the check, you are going to answer a lot of questions. You're forcing them to tell you what is important. And times they don't know. And then they go, oh God, okay, that is important. But when I put on my marketing brain for them, that is a caution I always throw out there, is how well do you know who you're selling to? But the amazing thing is, even if you think you're selling to this tiny little community, it's not. It's a large community. Right. So you think you're alone, you're not. If you've gotten this far and you're making apparel, they're out there. So that is the caution, is to say, sometimes just stay within your lane. I'm always fascinated to see promotional distributors that, that I work with. And you look at their client base and suddenly you realize they're all airlines, or they're all gun manufacturers, right? Or they're all, right? But people find that lane and they realize, I know how to talk and communicate to these people really well. So it's so easy for me to jump into their shoes and understand what they'd want on it, what they don't like, what they haven't, right? So, if you do kind of find that lane, stay in it as long as you can, and then look for these little parallel angles to go off and go, you know what, that's related. That feels good. When you feel out of your elements, when you're just diving into a world you don't understand. And, for me, I've been in apparel all my life. I have a, huge strategic advantage. But if you throw me out and I'm selling water pumps tomorrow, right, I'm going to need 6 months to become a water pump dork, or I don't want to do it. Right. I don't want to be out there not being a subject matter expert.
Yeah, I think in addition to that, because once you get into one market, there's all these little like subcategories of the markets, right? And I think a great description or definition of this would be we work with a lot of clients that are printing for teams and leagues, right? And so once the team or the parents of the player on the team, whoever it might be, even faculty at the school, if so be, they will start asking, okay, well, I know you did names and numbers for this. Can you do a t-shirt for me to wear for my son on the football field? Or it might be the cheerleading team that's like, okay, can you do this, but in glitter? And then it's just kind of like, it's a slippery slope of an example of being everything to everyone, right? Like maybe you are honed in on doing names and numbers for jerseys, and the cheerleading team who also wants custom glitter everything and custom rhinestone everything is an easy plug for me because I'm doing that, but it might not be my category. It might not be the audience that I resonate well enough. So I caution, again, trying to be everything to everyone instead of like focusing on tightly edited product mixes and product that you are already focusing on for another category. As much as you might want to add that on for another revenue stream, just make sure you're really understanding that audience. And then that also helps in boosting conversation as well. I feel like, and we talked about this a little bit earlier, when we become so transactional in our day-to-day conversations with our clients, maybe they want to call in and place a $200 piece order, right, for some t-shirts. Maybe ask, okay, well, what is this for? What else might you need for this event that you need 200 shirts for? Should we do towels? Should we do water bottles? If we open up this conversation and talk about curating products specifically for your customers' needs, it's elevating the overall perceived value, right? Because they called in expecting just to be able to order shirts from you, but now you're offering other curated product that's going to fit for this event, like water bottles, like towels, whatever it might be, right? Depends on the scenario. But you're creating a brand that they can then trust and build value in because you're offering a solution for things they may have thought they needed to go somewhere else for.
Yep. There's two magic words in my world. One is signature and the other one is limited edition. So if you do the homework and you do,
I'm already bought it. Tell me more.
I mean, you have to earn those words, right? You have to earn them.
Right.
If you use them on a screen, sorry, but if it's a branded, it doesn't work. So what did you do extra to warrant being able to call something signature or limited edition? That little extra mile, right? So if you talk about the cheerleading squad, and then somebody on the cheerleading squad had some proprietary stuff they drew themselves, right? Well, this is a signature series that we came up with, and it's not, what you're telling people is it's not going to be there. One, it's special, and it's not going to repeat, right? It won't be there again. So you add a little bit of a sense of urgency to say, no, guys, this is really fun. We put extra effort. It helps if it's white labeled, so when you really make it your own. But in my world, limited edition, we've gone, I'll have a great case study I can give you right now. So I went to a large brewery, had where you go get a free beer at their brewery, and they had leather jackets and they were beautiful. And they had about 40 of them on a rack, and they're smashed on a rack. And I couldn't help it. And I'm drinking my little free beer. I'm like, oh my God, I can't stand it. So I called over the person that was running the store and I said, you've got to do me a favor. I said, please take about 35 of these jackets back in the room and leave 5
Okay.
out and put a sign on there, because they were. I said, are there any more of these coming? No. I said, fine, they're limited edition now. Take all of them back, put 5 out, put limited edition, and actually take a Sharpie marker and write 1 of, 2 of on those tags. And I
Okay.
called a month later and he said they're almost gone.
Oh
Because
my
when you see
God.
that rack, all you see is I'm going to look like this many other people, right?
Right.
And
Oh
at
my
the end of
gosh,
the
that is
day,
such a
yeah,
good way to put that.
yeah. So I mean, it's not like the whole town and all the neighbors are just going to come get them. These are people visiting. So you
Right.
have to give people that feeling that this is something special. This is my moment right now to get it. And somebody did the extra work, right, to let me know that this is kind of this little window. So there's little things you can do, right, to just kind of pull people in, but be
Yeah.
honest about it. Don't run them again, right? Have the discipline. If you're going to say then they are.
Yeah.
Don't.
Leave it at that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's new art, right? We'll always find something else.
Well, that, and I feel like we've all seen it, right? Whenever we're shopping, especially in retail stores, where like, and this is typically like a fast fashion retail store where there's just so much product on the rack, and it just becomes this idea of, okay, now there's just too many choices, and now I just am unsatisfied with this experience. So now I'm not buying anything. And I'm sure you've heard it before. A lot of us probably have when it comes to product selection. But paradox of choice is real. Like, we have
Absolutely.
all experienced it in our own way. But it is real consumer psychology. And for those that are listening that may not know, there is a well documented concept known as the paradox of choice. And it was coined by Barry Schwartz, a psychologist. And the core idea is that, well, people think that they want more options, too many choices can actually just lead to anxiety and indecision. And I feel like this kind of plays into your example here of these jackets on the rack. You were removed so many. And while they were the same product, we were eliminating like clutter almost and
Yeah.
building clarity, right? And so this kind of plays into that paradox of choice. If there's too much there, then it's just kind of like, oh, okay, it's a sense of these products were like probably just stocked as opposed to selected specifically for me.
Exactly.
And I love what you said. You'll have to repeat it one more time because I want to write this down. But it was what did you say? Um, it was made for me as opposed to, or something like that. What did you say?
Now I'm searching
I'm
one.
like, you need to coin this phrase because it is very impactful. It felt like it was made more for them as opposed to something everyone's going to have. It's the sense of exclusivity. I don't know the exact words, so I'm going to have to listen
We'll have to go
back
back
and
to
make
the
sure I
recording.
include it in my wrap up. But it was really impactful. And it tells a story of apparel choices. And I feel like people don't just buy product, they buy products that tell a story about what the product is or what it might say about them whenever they're wearing it. I don't know. It's just, I love what you said.
No, nobody loves a smashed rack. You don't, right?
Right.
You cannot. There's not one marketing world where you could show me that a giant pile of something stuffed together is a good idea. Some of the stores I go in, like a Buck Mason or a Faraday or others, they
Mhm.
know better than to put giant stacks, right? That's when you're dealing with fast fashion, right? Is when you go into a department and you can just see
Yes.
them, right?
Mhm.
And so they have the discipline to have a bar, and that bar's got space this far between, right? It makes you just want to go up and go, like there might be only a few of these.
Yeah.
So yeah, some of it is marketing, and some of it's just giving people that feel of, yeah, this is kind of a unique thing, and you're lucky to be here, right? How fun is
Yeah.
this? Yeah,
Yeah. I love that sense of urgency, that exclusivity. They feel like they just got a backstage pass to being like in the inner circle, right? And
yeah,
that's something everybody wants to feel. But you cannot have that with your brand without making somebody feel like they're already a part of your brand. And that is the power of storytelling. So, how do you approach storytelling when you're building a collection or brand?
The one thing, so you kind of touched on it, don't make it so easy, right? So
Okay.
if people have gotten to you, they've gotten to you for a reason, right? Whatever
Mhm.
you are, your brand or who you are, you've sold them on something and they're there. So the biggest mistakes I see when we're embellishing garments is they push too hard and they push too much. It gets back to that coding example of
Okay.
make people work for it a little bit. Right.
Yeah.
So I want to have something that I'm sitting at the bar having a beer and I want somebody to kind of walk around and just see something and go, well, I feel like a loser because I don't know what that is. Right. They want to kind of go up to you and tap you and go, what
Yeah.
is
Why do
that?
I not know what this is?
Yeah. So you bring them in. Right. And so don't just smash the brand out there. I mean, yeah, there's a time for that. I get it.
Mhm.
Supreme, that fine. But there's also a time that you say, you know what, less is more. So there were a couple things. I'll tell you when I worked for a car. They launched a new huge release of an electric vehicle, and it
Okay.
was a signature vehicle. And I thought, you know what, these people are going to pay $150,000 for this vehicle.
See, there
And
we
so I'm
go.
not
There's
just
that signature. It comes with a
well,
nice little price
yes,
tag.
but it's not just signature. I actually woke up in that morning and said, okay, I'm going to be rummaging. And I'm literally rummaging around in this vehicle, digging and clawing. What I was looking for is the little thing, right? What's the thing? I can't just put the name and go, yay, I did it. And even just the name and some interesting method, that's not enough. So anyway, I'm digging around and I get to the front and I look at the door and there's a speaker, the car speaker, and it's got a lunar pattern on it. And I'm like, what? Like, what does this have to do with the vehicle? And there's a little boot print. And so I called up and I said, you guys, what's going on? And they're like, why are you even asking? What's your problem? And I'm like, I have to know. It's killing me.
Right.
And it turns out that is a little Easter egg of the designers of the vehicle. They said at day one, when they were making it, they said it's a total moonshot that we can even pull this thing off. And that's Neil Armstrong's boot print. So,
No way.
so you're sitting there and I'm looking at that going, well, that's amazing. Like, that's a
Yeah.
great
Why are we
story.
not talking about this?
So, in building the garments, we're bringing in this little lunar pattern strategically in places.
Wow.
And, it may be that the person that buys that vehicle loves it, sees this garment, says it's cool. And then they're wearing their shirt one day and they're looking in the collar at this lunar pattern going, what the hell is that? And
Yeah.
then they drop a piece of bubble gum or something and look down and see that lunar pattern and they go, no way. Right. And that's when
It's all
but you
tied.
don't tell them that, right? When we were doing the marketing, you don't go, and by the way, the collar has the pattern that you see on, no,
Let them
you
figure it out for
let them find it,
themselves.
right?
Yeah.
And those are the things that, when you really get in, these are the fun things that tell people you tried harder. You tried a little bit harder that day, right? You looked at your
Mhm.
design and said, it's good. And then you went, no, it's not good enough. Right. And now you got to be careful because sometimes you overthink it and you put too much crap on there and then back up. But, know when to find that extra thing. And your technology is great because it's not expensive and it's not difficult to add that one other thing, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah, we're coming off fresh of ASI Fort Worth, and we did 3 seminars there, and one of our demonstrations was unique print placement, right? And so maybe it's just a small little drop of like branding, or maybe it's a message you want to get across of this line, whatever it might be. Do it in a unique place that's not your standard like left chest logo or sleeve print. Make them work for it and have this little like tiny detail just catch their eye, and then that then reflects what values you have in your lifestyle, whatever it is that you're trying to reflect of your brand, right? Let it reflect in a unique way because it remains top of mind for your customer, and then builds a form of loyalty, right? Because now they're a part of something that you did, and it kind of just creates this emotional connection that may have been missing before whenever they were just buying product from you regularly, right? Maybe it's just a left chest logo shirt, right? But now you're opening up ideas. People are starting to get that creative juice flowing of what next they could do just from seeing that little unique element that they don't typically see from the standard products that they buy. So I love that. I think that is brilliant. And I think that builds on brand loyalty for getting those repeat customers.
The other thing I love is what I like to call mixed media. People love highs and lows, right?
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, they're used to screen print, okay, right? And if you look through your product assortment, clearly, people want dimension. That's what the reason embroidery, right, was such a ooh, look at that, right?
Yes.
Stitches.
Yeah.
But stitches are difficult. There's time and a place for everything. But what I love is when somebody finds a way to engineer a high-low effect, right? So you've got the shadow of X. Like right now, I mentioned that town project we're working on. So if City Hall can be in the background is essentially a pencil sketch, right? But over the top could be, comes this prominent thing that shouldn't even be there, but it's on top, right? And
Gotcha. Yep.
that high-low effect, and especially if you can be creative enough to do that in one imprint, if you can find that method to be able to pull that off, or if you just spend the time and do two, right? This goes here and this goes here. It takes a bit of engineering. Got to be careful to not get too far in the surgical placements, but that does again tell people I tried harder, right? I did. And they don't maybe you didn't even try harder, you just gave them an element of surface texture, and that means something, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And honestly, it can be through design, like what you're talking about. It can be through finish, whether that be a specific type of screen print ink, maybe a dimensional vinyl, whether maybe it's embroidery. It doesn't matter. It could be anything from the garment to the design to the finish, whatever it may be. If that's your thing, own it and focus on it and make that a priority in the messaging and the conversation that you're having with your clients, because if they like that, then they're going to keep coming back to you for those exact reasons. People don't buy product just because they feel like buying it. They want to wear it. They want to feel authentic, and they want to do that with somebody who is reliable, right? So if that's something that you can provide, whether it be through the apparel, the design, the finish, hone in on it, because that's your brand loyalty right there. That's why people keep coming back to buy your product.
Yeah. That kind of sneaks back to stay in your lane. Not that you have to, not that that's gospel, but when it comes so naturally to you because you know that customer so well and you know what they do so well, that all your knowledge just kind of comes out of substrates and how to do it. But it's more, oh my gosh, we could take baseball leather, simulate that. And then suddenly right? So the more that you kind of understand that world, the better you are without having to think about it, right? You don't have to overthink. You're like, oh my God, I've been there. I know it.
Well, yeah. And like I mentioned earlier, it's like you're a friend that's always telling you what's cool, what's relevant, right? Think about the playlist that you always enjoy going back to and listening to, because you do that because it's thoughtfully made, it speaks to you, and you don't want to go to a next playlist and hit shuffle. You already know what you like is there. It's been curated, it's been built out, and you know the quality, right? So make your brand's apparel line kind of like the playlist that you know and love, that you always keep going back to, right? Because it's built specifically for an audience that the curator knows, loves that music, right? So apparel can be the same thing. Make an apparel playlist that nobody wants to hit shuffle on.
And you know what? Also, don't wait. Don't wait for the idea to be given to you. Every once in a while, if you haven't heard from someone, sit back, get on social media, look at what they're doing, and preemptively just send them something and say, you know what? I was looking around. That was really fun what I saw there. And this reminded me of it. What do you think? Right?
Yeah, there are so many resources out there to do that, right? Like look at our apparel, our top 3 apparel distributors, Alpha Broder, S&S, Sanmar. I mean, they're actively curating seasonal guides, fashion guides for you to go out and talk to your customers with. Like there are a lot of resources. Not all of us have time in the day to sit and pull trends and figure out color of the year and what new print finish everybody's using these days, right? we try to make an effort to stay up to date on those, but utilize the resources that you guys have. Stalls.com is great. We're constantly educating on what's new and what's relevant, right? But there are a lot of other resources out there. So social media is huge. TikTok's incredible. If your audience speaks to that, make sure you're going where your audience is so you know what to talk to them about. I think that having that connection and kind of being that it person for your customers that says, okay, if you want to do a quarter zip for your corporate apparel, right? A quarter zip's great. And there are so many options, but here's what's new. Here's what's fresh. Here's what you need to be printing. And here's why. If you can be that person, that's automatically building that loyalty as well. So know your aesthetic and stick to it.
Yep.
All right. So as we wrap up, I just want to hit on some key takeaways. First is curation builds trust, right? We've talked about curating a lot today, but knowing your audience and building that loyalty through the curation of products that you're selecting. Secondly, customers don't just buy products, they buy stories. So storytelling is huge for the products that you're curating for your customers. And three, in a crowded market, loyalty belongs to brands that stay intentional. So whenever you are curating your products, be intentional about the product, whether it be the fit, feel, and fabric, maybe it's the finish, the dimension or texture that you're using in your print, or maybe it's unique location or unique messaging that is like an Easter egg, like Michael mentioned. There are a lot of really great ways to approach this, but hone in and own what your focus is. So, Michael, as we are wrapping up, where can folks stay updated with you and the Canvas Custom Apparel Group online?
So we're canvascag.com. So Canvas Custom Apparel Group. And our website does give some, some great case studies, some stuff I've even talked about you would see there. And then for me, it's just engaging with me, right? That's just one of those things where I love, just like, a great example of what you just said. If you're going to deal with stalls, here's something I saw something that Levi's did. How would you do it, right? Give it to the experts and say, I don't have to figure it out all the time. And that's what I look for, is for people to come to me and go, I'm inspired. Again, I don't care if it's a bar. I love bar napkins. Yay. Hand me that. That's my job, right? My job is to take, apparel. I do my whole life. What are you trying to do? Right. And if I can bring it back to them and go, then I'm like, that's what gets me out of bed. Yeah.
Yeah, that is amazing. All right. And I can say I sitting down and having conversation with Michael is definitely a great time. We've had the pleasure of being able to grab some dinner and hang out at the POD conference. And it has been always amazing. So guys, make sure you connect with Michael, whether that is through the website or even LinkedIn. Would you say LinkedIn's a good point? All right, perfect. So check him out on LinkedIn and stay connected there. Really great person to be connected with, especially in this ever-evolving industry. That is a wrap for today's episode. Thank you again, Michael, for sharing all the insights on how curation and storytelling, and really just giving great examples and case studies of how product choices are really reshaping the way of brand loyalty and how customers decide who they want to buy from.
My pleasure.
If you guys want to keep the conversation going, check out our new Now Next YouTube video where we dive deeper into this topic and explore what premiumization really looks like in apparel decoration. Thanks for listening. And as always, stay inspired, stay intentional, and keep pressing forward. Until next time.